In the shadows of history and the whispered lore of ancient lands, a chilling truth lies hidden. Fairies, those whimsical winged creatures from children's tales, conceal a far darker reality. Across cultures and centuries, these beings have been revered and feared, known not just for their playful mischief, but for their sinister deeds. From the Celtic Sidhe to the Norse Alfar, tales of eerie encounters and ominous abductions have permeated the fabric of human experience. Journey into a world where fairies are more than mere folklore, where the line between myth and reality blurs, and where mysterious visitors continue to haunt our modern skies. Prepare to uncover the unsettling truths of these ancient entities and their haunting echoes in the stories we tell today. In ancient times, pagan beliefs shaped the way people understood the world around them. Nature was seen as alive with spirits and deities, each with their own powers and personalities. These beings were deeply interwoven with daily life, influencing everything from the weather to personal fate. Among these spirits, fairies held a significant and often terrifying place. In Celtic traditions, fairy lore is rich and intricate. The Sidhe, as they were known, were believed to inhabit an invisible world parallel to our own. These beings were not the small winged creatures of modern fairy tales, but rather powerful, almost godlike entities. They lived in ancient fairy mounds, which were thought to be entrances to their otherworldly realm. The Sidhe were both revered and feared, capable of bestowing blessings or wreaking havoc on those who crossed them. One of the most famous myths is that of Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth. It was said to be a paradise where the Sidhe lived, untouched by time or decay. According to legend, the warrior poet Oisin was taken there by Niamh, a fairy princess. He lived in bliss for what seemed like a few years, but when he returned to the mortal world, centuries had passed. This tale highlights the mysterious and often perilous nature of interactions with the Sidhe. Fairy societies were thought to be highly organized, with their own courts and hierarchies. The idea of the fairy court, ruled by a fairy queen or king, appears in many stories. These courts could be places of great beauty and joy, but also of danger and deception. Humans who stumbled upon fairy celebrations or rituals risked being enchanted or even trapped in the fairy world. Beyond Celtic traditions, fairies appear in various forms across many cultures. In Norse mythology, the Alfar were divided into light elves and dark elves. The light elves were seen as benevolent beings, while the dark elves were more sinister, residing underground and causing mischief or harm. In Slavic folklore, the domovoi were household spirits that could be both protective and vengeful. These small, bearded beings were believed to inhabit homes, helping with chores and protecting the family if treated with respect. However, they could also become malevolent if offended, causing disturbances and bad luck. Japanese folklore introduces us to the yokai, a broad category of supernatural beings that include spirits, demons, and fairies. Among them, the Tengu and Kitsune stand out. Tengu are bird-like spirits known for their mischief and martial prowess, while Kitsune are fox spirits that can be either benevolent or malevolent, often playing tricks on humans or even possessing them. The similarities between these diverse cultural beliefs are striking. Almost every culture has myths involving invisible, trickster-like beings that interact with the human world. Is this mere coincidence, or does it point to a deeper truth about our reality? These beings, whether called Sidhe, Alfar, domovoi, or yokai, share common traits of power, unpredictability, and a connection to nature and the supernatural. As we delve deeper into the lore of these ancient entities, we uncover a world where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural blur, and where these beings continue to capture our imagination and shape our myths. Across the diverse cultures that believe in fairies, these beings take on many forms, each with unique characteristics and roles. Among the most well-known are the pixies, small and playful spirits often depicted with wings. In the folklore of southwestern England, pixies are mischievous, leading travelers astray and playing tricks on unsuspecting humans. Yet their antics can quickly turn sinister, with tales of pixies luring children away from their homes, never to be seen again. Elves are another prominent type of fairy, especially in Germanic traditions. In these myths, elves could be both benevolent and malevolent, often reflecting the duality of nature itself. The light elves, known as Ljósálfar, were ethereal and beautiful, residing in Alfheim under the god Freya's protection. Dark elves, or Dökkálfar, lived underground and were known for causing diseases and misfortune. These beings, with their contrasting natures, underscore the complex relationship humans have with the supernatural. Brownies, from Scottish and English folklore, are household fairies that assist with chores at night in exchange for small offerings of food. These small, human-like creatures with wrinkled faces and tattered clothes are generally helpful. However, they can become vengeful if insulted, or if their offerings are neglected. Stories tell of brownies who turned into boggarts, malevolent spirits that wreak havoc on the household, frightening inhabitants and causing endless trouble. The darker aspects of fairy behavior are a common thread across these myths. Trickery is a hallmark of fairy lore. In Ireland, leprechauns are known for their cunning and elusive nature, often tricking those who seek their pot of gold. These small, solitary fairies are shoemakers by trade and are said to hide their treasures at the end of rainbows, a lure for the greedy and unwary. These various types of fairies, with their multifaceted behaviors, underscore the complex relationship humans have had with these supernatural beings. They are beings of both light and dark, capable of great kindness and terrible cruelty. As we explore the depths of their lore, the boundaries between the benevolent and the malevolent blur, revealing a world where fairies wield power in ways that are both enchanting and terrifying. The darker aspects of fairy behavior extend beyond mere trickery. One of the most terrifying elements of fairy lore involves abductions and the sinister practice of replacing humans with changelings. These stories are not just whimsical tales, but are deeply rooted in the fear and mystery surrounding these otherworldly beings. In Celtic tradition, the Sidi were notorious for spiriting away humans, particularly children, to their otherworldly realms. These abducted individuals were often replaced with changelings, fairy offspring left in the human's place. Changelings were usually sickly and frail, a stark contrast to the healthy children they replaced. Parents would be tormented by the inexplicable transformation of their once lively child into a lethargic and unresponsive being. This phenomenon was not limited to children. Adults too could be taken, especially those who wandered into fairy mounds or crossed paths with the Sidi during certain times of the year. One chilling account tells of a young boy named Michael Leahy from Ireland. He was said to have been replaced by a changeling, a child who constantly cried and never seemed to grow. Desperate, his family consulted a local wise woman who advised them on rituals to expel the fairy child and bring back their son. Despite their efforts, the boy remained unchanged. Overwhelmed by despair and fear, the family eventually abandoned the child, believing their true son was lost forever. This tragic decision haunted them for the rest of their lives, a stark reminder of the cruel influence of the fairies. In Scotland, similar tales abound. The Kelpies, water spirits, were known to lure people, particularly children, to their watery graves. These shape-shifting entities could appear as beautiful horses, enticing their victims onto their backs before dragging them into the depths. Such stories served as grim warnings to stay away from certain places and heed the mysterious forces of nature. Historical accounts also highlight the fear of changelings in medieval Europe. In Germany, the tale of Peter Stuber, a farmer believed to have been taken by fairies and replaced with a changeling, spread terror throughout his village. Peter returned after several years, seemingly unchanged, but his behavior was erratic and violent. Villagers believed he was no longer human but a fairy imposter. Folklore surrounding changelings often included methods to identify and expel them. It was believed that leaving a changeling near a fire would force the fairy to reveal its true nature. Other rituals involved iron objects, as fairies were thought to be repelled by the metal. These practices underscore the deep-seated fear and desperate measures people would take to protect their loved ones from the influence of fairies. These tales of abductions and changelings reveal a world where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural are dangerously thin. The fear of losing one's child or being replaced by an otherworldly imposter reflects deep-seated anxieties about identity, family, and the unknown. Such stories tap into primal fears and offer a way to explain the inexplicable: sudden illness, mental disturbances, or the mysterious behavior of loved ones. Even today, narratives of abductions and human transformations brought on by supernatural beings persist, hinting at a deeper, ongoing mystery that spans from ancient folklore to modern encounters. One of the most well-known and feared manifestations in fairy lore, often associated with supernatural activity, are fairy rings. These strange formations can appear as circles of mushrooms or as rings of dead or broken vegetation. They have long been regarded with a mixture of awe and dread. These rings are believed to be the result of fairies dancing in a circle, leaving behind a trace of their revelry. However, these seemingly innocuous formations carry ominous warnings. Stepping into a fairy ring is said to invite dire consequences, trapping the unwary traveler in the fairy realm. Time within these rings is distorted. What feels like mere minutes might translate to years in the human world. One such tale is that of a farmer named Robert Kirk from Aberfoyle, Scotland. In the 17th century, Kirk was a minister with a deep interest in the supernatural. He ventured into a fairy ring and vanished without a trace. Locals believed he had been taken by the fairies, punished for revealing their secrets in his writings. Legend holds that his spirit remains trapped, wandering the hills and woods of Aberfoyle. In Wales, the story of Rhys and Llewellyn recounts two friends who encountered a fairy ring on their way home. Despite warnings, they stepped inside and were drawn into a whirlwind of music and dancing. Llewellyn managed to escape and return the next morning, only to find that Rhys had aged decades overnight. The experience left Llewellyn haunted by the memory and the knowledge that he had narrowly escaped a similar fate. The tales extend beyond the British Isles. In Germany, a young maiden named Helga was lured into a fairy ring by enchanting music. She danced with the fairies until dawn, only to find herself unable to leave. Her family searched for her in vain, believing she had been taken by the forest spirits. Helga's story became a cautionary tale, warning others of the dangers of disturbing the sacred spaces of the fairies. Punishments from fairies could be severe and long-lasting. In one tale, a farmer who destroyed a fairy ring found his cattle dead and his crops blighted, a punishment for disturbing the fairies' sacred space. Another story tells of a woman who spied on a fairy dance and was struck blind as retribution. These tales serve as a stark reminder of the boundaries set by these otherworldly beings, boundaries that, when crossed, could result in unimaginable consequences. In centuries past, belief in fairies was an intrinsic part of daily life. Fairies were regarded with a mixture of reverence and fear, seen as powerful entities capable of influencing the natural world and human destiny. Rituals and customs were deeply rooted in the desire to appease these supernatural beings, ensuring their favor and avoiding their wrath. The landscape itself was a testament to these beliefs, with fairy mounds, sacred groves, and enchanted rings marking the territory of the unseen. However, the advent of the Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th centuries began to shift these perceptions. As rationality and scientific thought took hold, the supernatural explanations for the mysteries of the world started to wane. The Industrial Revolution further propelled this shift, bringing about rapid technological advancements and a newfound confidence in human ingenuity. The fairies, once omnipresent in the collective consciousness, began to recede into the shadows of superstition. Despite this, the transition was not abrupt. Fairies transformed from sacred beings to figures of folklore and children's tales. They retained a lingering sense of fear, a shadow of their former power. Stories adapted to fit the changing times, with fairies becoming smaller, more whimsical, and less threatening. Yet even in these seemingly benign forms, traces of their darker origins persisted. The cautionary tales of old were repackaged into moral lessons for children, warning them to respect the unknown and heed the lessons of the past. In Victorian England, this transformation was particularly evident. The era's fascination with the supernatural and the occult gave rise to a romanticized view of fairies. Artists and writers depicted them as delicate, ethereal creatures, inhabiting a world of beauty and wonder. However, beneath this veneer of enchantment, the old fears lingered. The Cottingley Fairies hoax of 1917 is a prime example. Two young girls claimed to have photographed real fairies, capturing the public's imagination and sparking a renewed belief in the magical. The photographs were later revealed as fakes, but the incident underscored the enduring power of fairy lore in the modern psyche. The Victorian era also saw a resurgence of interest in folklore and fairy tales. Collections of stories were published, and fairy-themed art and literature flourished. Yet, even as fairies were romanticized, the stories often carried darker undertones. The fear of abduction and the mysterious nature of these beings persisted, hidden beneath the surface of their newfound charm. The evolution of fairy beliefs reflects the broader changes in society. As humanity moved towards a more scientific understanding of the world, the fairies adapted, maintaining a presence in our stories and imaginations. They became symbols of the unknown, a reminder of the mysteries that still elude our grasp. The transition from revered entities to whimsical characters marks a shift in how we perceive the supernatural. Yet the fear and fascination they inspire remain deeply rooted in our collective consciousness. In the modern era, fairy lore continues to weave its way into our cultural fabric, influencing fantasy literature and media. The tales of old have found new life in the pages of books and on the screens of movies and television shows. Authors like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis drew heavily from ancient myths, infusing their works with the essence of fairy folklore. Tolkien's elves with their ethereal beauty and ancient wisdom, and Lewis's fauns and nymphs echo the spirits of Celtic and Norse legends. These stories captivate audiences, blending the fantastical with the familiar and keeping the spirit of fairy lore alive in contemporary imagination. Modern fantasy literature often explores the darker aspects of fairy tales, delving into the sinister and unsettling nature of these beings. Holly Black's The Cruel Prince series, for example, portrays fairies as both beautiful and dangerous, their world filled with political intrigue and deadly power struggles. This echoes the duality present in traditional fairy lore, where fairies were both revered and feared. Guillermo del Toro's films, like Pan's Labyrinth, also capture the haunting and eerie qualities of fairy myths, intertwining them with human stories of loss and survival. In contemporary paganism and spirituality, there has been a revival of interest in fairies, but with a focus on their darker, more complex nature. Modern pagans often honor fairies as powerful spirits of nature, capable of both great kindness and terrible wrath. Rituals and offerings are made to appease these beings, and sacred spaces are respected as places where the veil between worlds is thin. This resurgence reflects a desire to reconnect with the ancient traditions and the mysterious forces of the natural world. Fairy lore has also influenced modern practices such as Wicca and other neo-pagan movements. Practitioners might call upon fairies during rituals or seek their guidance and protection. The belief in fairies as guardians of nature and intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds persists, blending ancient myths with contemporary spiritual practices. The darker aspects of fairy lore are not forgotten in these modern interpretations. Stories of fairy abductions, changelings, and enchanted rings continue to capture the imagination, reminding us of the unseen forces that might still linger at the edges of our reality. This blend of reverence and fear, the beautiful and the terrifying, ensures that fairy lore remains a vital part of our cultural narrative. Of course, the most direct way fairy lore has influenced modern society is how it has morphed into a wholly new mythology of strange lights, abductions, and the sinister intentions of supernatural beings, hinting at an evolving narrative that continues to challenge our understanding of the unknown. In the shadows of our understanding lies a mystery that transcends time. As our ancestors spoke of fairies and spirits, modern society whispers of strange lights in the sky and beings from beyond our world. Could it be that these tales are not separate threads but woven from the same mysterious fabric? Jacques Vallée, in his groundbreaking work, Passport to Magonia, explores this tantalizing possibility. Vallée delves into the eerie parallels between historical fairy tales and modern alien encounters, suggesting that what we now call UFO sightings and alien abductions may be contemporary versions of ancient myths. His work challenges conventional views, revealing that these experiences are not new, but are deeply rooted in centuries-old folklore. In the folklore of the British Isles, fairies were often described as small humanoid beings with the power to abduct humans, especially children. They would take their captives to a hidden realm where time passed differently and mysterious phenomena occurred. These stories closely mirror modern accounts of alien abductions, where individuals report being taken by small humanoid beings, often referred to as greys, into spacecraft, experiencing a different perception of time and undergoing inexplicable procedures. One notable example Vallée discusses is the tale of Bridget Cleary, an Irish woman believed to have been abducted by fairies in the late 19th century. Her husband claimed she was taken and replaced by a changeling, leading to her tragic death. This tale echoes contemporary stories of alien abductions, where individuals are sometimes said to be replaced by clones or altered versions of themselves. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, sightings of mysterious airships or phantasmagoric craft with strange occupants emerged. These airships, described as having fantastical designs and manned by peculiar beings, reflected the period's fascination with flying machines and early science fiction. This shift from fairy rings and sprites to enigmatic airships illustrates how our cultural lens shapes our perception of these phenomena. The mid-20th century brought a new wave of sightings. Flying saucers became a staple of UFO lore. These nuts and bolts craft reflected the era's technological advancements and anxieties. However, as technology evolved, so did the nature of UFO sightings. The flying saucers of the 50s and 60s gave way to reports of strange portals and shifting lights in the sky, reflecting a new cultural perspective on these mysterious encounters. The phenomenon of strange lights in the sky, once attributed to fairies or supernatural beings, continues to be a common element in UFO sightings. The similarity in descriptions, glowing orbs, inexplicable movements, suggests a continuity in the way these phenomena are perceived. The concept of missing time, a recurring theme in alien abduction narratives, finds its counterpart in historical fairy tales. People taken by fairies often return to find that hours, days, or even years had passed, much like modern abductees who report lost hours and disorientation upon their return. The physical and psychological effects experienced by those who encounter these beings also show striking parallels. Historically, those who claim to have interacted with fairies often described illnesses, strange marks on their bodies, and profound psychological changes. Similarly, individuals who report alien encounters frequently describe physical symptoms, unexplained scars, and lasting psychological trauma. Is this merely a case of evolving mythology, adapting to fit the context of our modern world? Or is there a hidden truth, whether psychological or tangible, that links these ancient legends with contemporary experiences? The boundary between myth and reality remains elusive, suggesting a deeper connection between these mysterious encounters and our ever-changing cultural context. What could account for the striking similarities between fairy lore and UFO mythology? Is there a theory that can tie these seemingly disparate perspectives of this phenomenon together? John Keel, a journalist and ufologist, delved deep into the mysterious realm of UFOs and the beings behind them. His work, particularly The Eighth Tower, explores the eerie connections between historical fairy encounters and modern alien abductions. Keel's theories suggest that these phenomena are not merely isolated incidents, but part of a broader pattern of mysterious events that span centuries. Keel introduced the concept of ultra-terrestrials, beings that exist alongside us but are not from another planet. He proposed that these entities have been interacting with humanity for centuries, adapting their appearances and methods to fit the cultural context of the time. In medieval Europe, they appeared as fairies, elves, and spirits. In the modern era, they manifest as extraterrestrials and UFOs. Central to Keel's ultra-terrestrial theory is the idea of the superspectrum, a range of energies and frequencies beyond our normal perception. According to Keel, ultra-terrestrials exist within this superspectrum, influencing our world in ways that defy conventional understanding. These entities can manipulate our reality, creating bizarre and often terrifying encounters that leave lasting impressions on those who experience them. Like Valley, Keel noted the eerie similarities between historical fairy encounters and modern alien abductions. In both cases, individuals report being taken against their will by strange, otherworldly beings. These encounters often occur in remote locations and involve missing time, physical examinations, and bizarre experiences that defy conventional explanation. Consider the tale of Bridget Cleary, believed to have been abducted by fairies in 19th century Ireland, and the case of Betty and Barney Hill, a couple who claimed to have been abducted by extraterrestrials in the 1960s. Both stories involve mysterious beings, strange lights, and a profound impact on the victims' lives. The parallels are striking and suggest a deeper underlying connection between these experiences. Keel's investigations into UFO sightings and alien abductions often reveal chilling details that echo historical accounts of fairy interactions. For instance, in many fairy tales, people taken by fairies return with strange marks on their bodies, similar to the scars and implants reported by modern abductees. Both types of encounters frequently involve disorienting lights, a sense of paralysis, and a lingering feeling of dread. In Point Pleasant, West Virginia, Keel investigated the infamous Mothman sightings. Witnesses described encounters with a large, winged creature with glowing red eyes, a figure that shares characteristics with both fairies and modern UFO entities. These sightings were accompanied by strange lights in the sky, electrical disturbances, and reports of missing time. Keel's meticulous documentation of these events revealed a pattern that mirrored ancient legends of supernatural beings interacting with humans. The bizarre nature of these encounters extends to otherworldly offers of food. In both fairy lore and modern alien encounters, entities are known to offer strange foods or pancakes. In fairy tales, consuming these enchanted cakes often results in losing time or forgetting one's identity, a motif that echoes in UFO reports, especially popular in the 1940s and 50s, where abductees describe being given unusual food during their experience, leading to disorientation and memory loss. Keel also collected numerous case studies that highlight the horror and psychological trauma experienced by those who encounter these mysterious entities. One chilling account involves a man named Woodrow Derenberger, who encountered a being named Indrid Cold on a lonely highway. Cold communicated telepathically, describing himself as a visitor from another dimension. Derenberger's experience left him deeply shaken, much like those who claim to have been taken by fairies in earlier centuries. Keel's theories demand a shift in our worldview, urging us to look beyond relatively simple explanations of aliens or fairies and consider a radical explanation that fundamentally changes our understanding of the fabric of reality itself. In the labyrinth of the human psyche lies the concept of the collective unconscious, a theory pioneered by Carl Jung. Jung proposed that beneath the surface of individual consciousness exists a shared reservoir of archetypes and symbols, deeply embedded within the collective experience of humanity. This collective unconscious, he suggested, is a powerful force that shapes our dreams, myths, and indeed, our encounters with the unknown. The concept of archetypes, universal symbols and figures recurring across cultures and eras, can shed light on the nature of mysterious phenomena such as fairies and aliens. Fairies, once seen as supernatural beings of folklore, may represent archetypal figures embedded in our collective psyche. Similarly, the modern phenomenon of alien encounters might also tap into these deep-seated archetypes, manifesting as figures and scenarios that resonate with our current fears and expectations. Jung's theory offers a lens through which to view the evolving nature of these phenomena. In earlier times, people reported encounters with fairies, whose characteristics and behavior reflected the fears and beliefs of the age. As technology and cultural contexts shifted, so too did the nature of these encounters. The airships and strange craft of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, followed by the nuts and bolts UFOs of the 1950s and 60s, mirrored society's growing fascination with flying machines and technological advancements. This progression suggests that our collective unconscious adapts these archetypal figures to fit the cultural milieu. The fairies of old evolved into the mechanical sources of the 20th century, which in turn have given way to the elusive lights and interdimensional beings of contemporary reports. Each manifestation reflects the prevailing technological and cultural concerns of its time, hinting at a dynamic interplay between our shared unconscious and the mysteries that captivate us. Synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem to defy explanation, often accompany these encounters, adding another layer to their mystique. These synchronicities may be seen as manifestations of the collective unconscious, reflecting deep-seated connections between individuals and the broader patterns of existence. The appearance of these phenomena and their transformation over time underscores a profound and unsettling truth. Our encounters with the unknown are not just external experiences, but are deeply intertwined with the inner workings of our collective psyche. The boundary between the mythical and the real becomes increasingly blurred, challenging us to reconsider the nature of these phenomena and their roots in our shared human experience. The shifting nature of our encounters with the unknown seems to echo the evolution of our cultural and technological landscape. Robert Anton Wilson, a figure both profound and provocative, offers a perspective that blends the bizarre with the profound in understanding these phenomena. His exploration in Cosmic Trigger builds on Carl Jung's concepts, delving into how our perceptions of the supernatural and extraterrestrial might reflect deeper psychological and cultural constructs. Wilson introduces the concept of trickster energy, a force that disrupts conventional understandings and challenges our perceptions of reality. Tricksters, whether in folklore or modern experiences, are agents of chaos that blur the boundaries between the mundane and the extraordinary, forcing us to confront the ambiguity of our beliefs. Wilson's work suggests that encounters with strange beings or phenomena may not be purely external or random, but are intertwined with our collective psyche. These experiences, he argues, may reflect a deeper interaction between our inner world and the unknown, where the line between internal and external reality becomes increasingly blurred. Building on Jung's work, Wilson suggests that the trickster energy we encounter is not confined to the realm of our imagination, but interacts dynamically with reality. He proposes that reality is not simply an either-or choice between what is in your head and what is real. Instead, both aspects are interwoven and can influence each other simultaneously. This perspective resonates with modern quantum mechanics, which challenges the notion of a locally real world and suggests that reality itself is a complex and interconnected web of possibilities. Wilson's approach reveals that our understanding of these phenomena is shaped by both cultural context and personal perception. The evolution of these encounters, from fairy folk to flying saucers and now to strange lights and interdimensional visitors, reflects how societal fears and technological advancements shape the form of these experiences. Ultimately, Wilson's theories compel us to reconsider the nature of reality itself. There are no simple answers, and the interplay between what we perceive and what might actually exist invites us to question the very fabric of our understanding. The mysterious and often terrifying nature of these encounters suggests that reality is far more fluid and enigmatic than our conventional views might allow. The The chilling legacy of fairies and aliens blurs the lines between ancient fears and modern anxieties. Whether these entities emerge from the shadowy realms of ultra-terrestrials or the depths of our collective psyche, they remain harbingers of terror. The eerie parallels in their lore remind us that the darkness of these mysteries is not merely a product of myth or imagination, but a tangible threat that has haunted humanity across the ages. The fear they invoke is a stark reminder that, no matter the source, the danger they represent is real and ever-present. The shadows they cast linger on the edges of our perception, a chilling reminder of how tenuous our grip on reality truly is.